Hello, everybody. Welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. It is time for Mix It Up Monday that is hosted by the Peace Craft Love Facebook group. So if you're interested in our projects, you can find the links below. We take a scrapbook sketch, and this time it was created by our own Brandy Joe, and we add mixed media to it. Now the sketch already has mixed media, so that will be easy. I'm also combining this with the Layout a Day challenge, and there is the prompt for the day, and we'll talk more all about this as we go. Normally, I'd show you the photo and talk about the story that I'm going to take with this layout, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit just because this mixed media is going to need plenty of time to dry. I pulled out a sheet of paper from a Scrapbook Expo line of paper, which I haven't used much of since I bought it a couple years ago, so I was happy to pull this out. I am going to go ahead and take that big pink mixed media blob from the sketch, and I'm going to repeat that with gesso to tone down the background of this paper. I'm just using a silicone brush, but really for this kind of technique, you can use whatever you want. Whatever brush you do use is going to leave some brush strokes in it, and in this case, this is more of kind of streaks from the edge of the brush, and I'm okay with that. Also, as I'm moving the gesso around, I'm finding that there's little glops of the gesso collecting at the top and the bottom, and I decide I actually really like that. So that wasn't intentional, but happy accident there. And so I've left this sit for a couple hours while I watched a TV show with my husband, and I came back and it wasn't quite dry, but I'm going to go ahead and do this next step of mixed media to it, which is to add some gold splatters. So I'm going to touch this layout up a little bit by adding a bit of this gold on various areas of the layout. So I'm going to start with these splatters. So I've got the, is it Lunar Paste from Simon Hurley? I think it's the Lunar Paste and not the Solar Paste. Anyway, this is a gold product that I'm just going to water down and use for my splatters. This stuff is pretty thick, so it does need quite a bit of water if you're going to use it in this way. And I'm just going to add a bunch of spatters all around to kind of help frame out this layout. All right, I'm going to continue using that puddle on other pieces of my layout. I pulled out these little tab journal cards that I created for cutting out on electronic cutting machines, and that is actually a free cut file over on my blog, so I will link you up to that. I did need to trim them down even more and use my corner rounder to match to the edges after I trim them down, and then I'm just going to tap them in that leftover puddle of gold. Those little cards will be placeholders for photos and journaling. And speaking of photos, here are my photos, and my story comes from the load prompt of tell about something that you really wanted. And from a very young age, I knew I wanted to be a parent, and so this is telling that story. Now, some of the parts of the story are a little personal, so I did want to hide the journaling. So on the sketch, the two zones bordering that center big photo, I'm going to turn into pockets with hidden elements, including the journaling. So you can see I'm adding more gold to this layout, and as we keep going, I will add even more gold, and you'll see that as we get to it. All right, I am ready to make sure everything's going to fit. I do at this point think I could have pushed my white gesso out a little bit farther to the edges because I wanted it to kind of form a halo around all my elements, but you know, you do the best you can. All right, I am going to get this photo to fit on my journaling card. Another thing I wish I had done a little bit more planning ahead on when I printed out these photos. I knew that I was going to use some of these older photos, and because I knew the other part of the prompt from the load challenge was to use a frame, I did look through some of my supplies and pick a frame before. That's actually where I started the entire layout. And then I did make sure my photo would fit inside of that frame. And so I did plan that far ahead. If only I had planned this step as well. But you do the best you can do, right? Okay, I have set aside some pieces and I am moving on to expanding the focal photo. So I'm going to do that by doing a couple of double mattes and having a little bit of contrast between the matte colors. As I was cutting down this scrap piece of paper to be the matte, I noticed the backside had these little hot air balloons, which I'm pretty sure this is a Maggie Holmes paper that has been in my scrap for a while, and I've never found a good use for hot air balloons when they were popular, and so this is the page for it. It's kind of dreamy and light and airy, and that's kind of the feeling that I wanted to go for talking about having a baby. So that works out well. At any rate, I am looking at how everything fits in these glassine envelopes, and I decide they need to be attached at the bottom a little bit so the cards don't slip too far down so that they can't be reached anymore. So off screen, I did do some stitching on them, and you can see here that they're back on with that stitching in place. I'm going to start assembling the entire layout now that I've got all of the moving pieces in place. And I wanted to shift that frame just a little bit, but that glue stuck instantly to my photo, and it is what it is. So I cut off a little bit more of my forehead than I wanted to, but at least I got all the baby's face in there, right? That's what counts. All right. I had covered up some of that dipped mixed media that I had done on the journal card, so I added even more gold to those, especially on the tabs that are sticking out, so that part is more visible and makes them a little bit more noticeable that they do pull in and out. Now, part of what I wanted to do with this glassine envelope was to put a title on it, and I was able to arrange the title around so that you can still see the haze of the faces in the background. And because that is not a great photo, I definitely want it to be in the background, but it can be pulled out and looked at even though it's a grainy, poor quality photo. And that's part of the reason why I printed both of these in black and white, both so that they would pop against all the colors and because the photo wasn't the greatest. Now, I lost a piece to my title and I couldn't find it. And luckily, I realized I could go back, look at the video footage and see if I could keep track of where it disappeared to. And I had set wet glue from my envelope down on top of it, and I didn't even notice, and it got glued all behind that envelope. And I'm glad I had that footage because I would have been puzzled forever trying to figure out where that thing went. I thought for sure it must have landed on my lap or fell to the floor and got stuck on my sock. But I did find it by reviewing the footage. So thanks, YouTube. All right, I'm just going to add a few more bits and pieces here from, I think it's the Sweet Rush collection by Vicki Boutin, and that's where I'm getting all of the chipboard pieces, title, frame, all of that stuff is coming off of here. And then I added a little pop of black with one of the embellishments, and I was kind of surprised that this collection didn't have more pops of black in it since Vicki Boutin often adds that. And I realized, I do have black stitching on my envelope, so I'm just gonna go with a little bit more black here and there. So that is working out just fine. I found another little piece to put on the photo tab, and that works out. And then adding a few more gold bits and pieces, and then I got to this point, I'm like, maybe I don't want to fussy cut out those balloons, but this is real time, and really it didn't take too long to fussy cut those things out. So I went ahead and did it and got them on there, and that does add a little bit more detail to that second envelope, and I'm glad I did it. And then off camera, I finished off with a frame of stitching, which there was actually a bit of a frame in the sketch, so that all works out. And you can see everything pulls out. I will go ahead and add my journaling later after I'm done with this video. So here's a few close-ups of that project. Thanks for joining me for Mix It Up Monday. I hope you will go check out all the other crafters along the hop so that you can see how they interpret the sketch as well. Until next time, I hope you have an artful day.